Morning, I'll say that again to everyone. I don't know where you are sitting, but on campus, it's a sunny, bright, spring-like day. And I think that's a really great feeling after the, the late winter weather we've had. The return to campus has gone well. If you've been on campus at all in the last few weeks, you'll know that firsthand. It's actually the semester is going so quickly. We're less than 2 weeks out from spring break. And really, we're very close to the 1-year anniversary since we left campus, assuming we'd be back much quicker than we were. And next week is 1 year since my campus visit to Towson, my first visit to Towson, and thankfully not my last. So I think it's important at this moment just to reflect a little bit about what that year went like. It went for each of us. It was different for all of us for many reasons, and yet we share a lot in common. For those of you who've hardly been on campus in the last year, or maybe you haven't been on campus at all, I encourage you to visit. Teresa and her team have done a remarkable job making the building safe. It will look similar, but there are differences, and you'll notice those differences right away. And those should, put your mind to ease if you're uncomfortable about coming back to campus. Then I encourage you to walk around the building, get comfortable, walk around the campus. There's more that's open and available for use than there was just a few months ago. You can even eat on campus, and that means buy your own food or buy your own drink and eat on campus. Of course, in a safe way, distance and all of that. But slowly the campus is coming back to life, sort of like what happens to nature this time of year. And in my weekly walks around the building, I walk around the building probably daily, but I don't necessarily go into anyone's work area. I just walk in the halls to see, what students are in the building, what classes are meeting. I have actually ran into quite a few people, quite a few of you maybe even, and I've talked to, and I've heard a lot of good things about coming back to the building and how different it feels than what people initially might have expected, especially those who are more apprehensive. And I think that's the key here is we need to get used to coming to the campus and to a more normal life slowly over the next few months, certainly during the summer. And then, of course, in anticipation of coming back, hopefully, as fully as we can in the fall, assuming that everything goes well with vaccines, control of the virus, and so forth. And we have a lot of encouraging news that points us in that direction. And certainly our success this semester in bringing more students to campus, having more students living in the residence halls, those are all great things. The infection rate has been extremely low on campus, which means that people are doing what they should be doing, and that's good news for all of us. But I do want to say something that I've said in many meetings, and so you may have heard this before if you were in one of those meetings, and that is there is going to be a period of adjustment for all of us. I've been on campus almost every day. There'll be an adjustment for me. We're not used to being together in public, right, with people who aren't part of our family or our household. And that may be unsettling at times. And the numbers will be much larger than they are right now. So it's good just to keep reminding ourselves that everyone's experience was different. And in every household, the experience of individual members might have been different. So when I go visit my family in Chicago area, I'm struck by the fact that I'm probably the most active person. I go to work every day. My wife hasn't been to her office, for a year. Kids in our family that are in school are pretty much virtual, right? That's what they've been for a year now. So it's very different, their experience than mine. And what I take to be normal, even though I take precautions, they may see as somewhat suspect. So we need to think that everyone will come back in a different way. And, some people may have had the virus themselves by the time we come back. Some people might have family members who had the virus. Others may have lost family or friends to the virus. All of those, of course, will contribute to their feelings when they come back and start to resume a more normal life. So patience, understanding, I think we just have to keep, reminding ourselves of that. And people that you knew pre-pandemic who behaved very differently, we have to remember that there are probably good reasons they didn't come back the same way. And it could be that nothing tragic happened to anyone that they knew, but that just what's happened in the last 12 months, and by then 16 or 18 months, impacts each of us very differently. If you were at Academic Senate yesterday, you heard some very encouraging reports from the president and from Ben Lowenthal. So I don't have really anything much to add, but I do want to repeat for those of you who are not there. And both the president and Ben reported that the university continues to be in very good shape, solid shape. That has to do with many, many factors, but two that are really prominent are, of course, the state budget. And we won't know for a few more weeks, or maybe a little bit longer, what the state will decide for our budget for next year. And the other matter has a lot to do with all of us here, and it's enrollment. Now, enrollment has different pieces to it. We often think of enrollment in terms of admissions, which doesn't seem to be entirely in our area, probably quite separate, right? That's a whole different operation in universities. But the other part that's really critical to us is retention. So all that you do with students inside and outside of the classroom, that's what helps to keep them here, to keep them on a path to completion and success. That's utterly critical to everything at the university. It's important to bring students in as well, but if they don't stay, then we're not doing our job well enough. So all of you have, and I say you because I haven't been here long enough to really apply this to me, but all of you have a lot to be thanked for. I'm grateful that you do the work that you do and really have kept our students engaged in this challenging year. At Senate, the point was raised that, well, the university's enrollment is down. It's down less than 5% overall. There are differences in different programs and different colleges. Some areas might be at 0 or just above. Some might be a little bit below 4.7. But what's really important to remember is that if you look nationally at universities, either that are similar to ours or different, we've done extremely well. And we all know of universities that have been in the headlines for closing departments. Humanities are a fairly typical target, thinking that, well, we don't really need humanity. We need the humanities. The liberal arts are under target. It's seldom the sciences. But in any case, we aren't seeing that happen. What we have seen is positions being frozen, and those have slowly begun to thaw. We could expect more if things continue on a good trajectory, more of those positions to unfreeze in the next few months. But we have to remember that many, many positions were frozen to make sure that we didn't have furloughs. And that will take not a few months, but several years, I am guessing, to make up. So we have to be patient with that process and keep doing as well as we can, even though we may not have as many people doing the different things that we would like to get done or have to get done. So it will take a while to get out of this. But again, remember, we didn't see furloughs, and that's really important. And in fact, we've probably carried on with our work in such a similar way to the past that we may not realize how much other institutions have had to cut back and suffer. And again, that's a lot of it has to do with your great work, right? Not just the great work of Ben and his office and the president and so forth. It's everyone. This takes a team. It's not one area, though of course, all of those areas, when they're functioning well, that makes the difference. The strategic plan work. So you may or may not have heard some of the details of how we're going about our strategic plan work. We're on a very tight timetable. You may be aware that by midsummer, each college has been required to come up with its own strategic plan in alignment with the university's new strategic plan. Each college is going about its work in different ways, and I would say they reflect those disciplinary differences in each college. So here's how we're doing it in the College of Liberal Arts. So the chairs gather twice a month in what we call the Leadership Council. And so the chairs are working on the first three goals of, that's their primary work, the first three goals of the strategic plan. Those goals are educate, innovate, and engage. And we're focusing on the chair's work on that, or the college's work on those three goals, because the second three goals, while they're important in our work, they really, the primary effort belongs to other offices. The second three goals are include, support, and sustain. And so the chairs are divided into three groups, for each of those goals: educate, innovate, and engage. And then each group has a subgroup that will look at those include, support, and sustain goals and see how they can be woven into the primary work, or how they are woven into the primary work of our college, right? Of our work in the classroom and research. And as the chairs work on this, I have included in each of those groups representatives from College Council, Diversity Inclusion Committee, and then the Curriculum Committee. The idea is we have very little time to get this done, but we need to have information flow, right? It's not just the chairs, the dean's office decides all of this and that's it. Everyone on one of those groups is being charged with going back to their constituency. So the chairs go back to their departments and share what work is being done, share the ideas of the chair's leadership group. And each of those committee or council members does the same with their respective groups. And then I will do with other groups that weren't included for other reasons. And listen to ideas locally, that means in the college, in the departments, and then share those ideas back up and incorporate ideas too. So as much as we can, we have a flow of ideas, okay? So I see it in my mind, and I'm not very good graphically, but I see it as a circular process. It's not just up, down, but it's flowing. And I think this will help us to not only include as many different perspectives, but also to hear them, because every point can't be included in a strategic plan, right? Every perspective cannot, and not because they're not good, sometimes they really don't belong there, or sometimes they're things that may be too ambitious and we can't get to them in the next 10 years, or maybe we feel they aren't priorities. In terms of priorities, I've asked the different chair groups to keep certain things in mind. So I gave them a list of questions, which I'll tell you here. And they, again, help us to focus on the liberal arts and what we do so well. So first of all, how can CLA express itself in the university's strategic plan? And then how are CLA's core values specifically of the liberal arts? I think that's an important question to always ask ourselves, not just maybe one discipline, but of the liberal arts in general. And then what opportunities are there for cross-departmental connections? What opportunities are there for cross-college connections? So that's related. How can the democracy theme that I mentioned in last month's town hall serve as a connector for college events? What are our space and technology needs over the next 10 years? And this one, of course, is maybe one of the trickiest one, or the most challenging one, because nobody knows what technology will look like in 10 years or what our space needs will be. I mean, we have to hope that what we're experiencing now with the pandemic will pass. But what if we find ourselves as a society thinking that we need much larger spaces for gatherings, including classrooms? Well, that impacts a lot of things on the campus. So, but we don't know that right now. And in terms of technology, we can assume that technology will continue to develop and expand and become more, central to our lives, but we don't know what that technology will be and what directions it will take us. But at least we should try to think based on what we know today. And there are ways to, brainstorm about how to create things that will allow for all of that unknown in the future. And then the last question I asked is, how do we marry the university that was in the past, that is today, and that will be in the future? For each of us, that's a different thing. clearly for me, it's very limited experience. It's like 8 months is my past. For some people, it might be 50 years. For others, it might be 30. For some, it might be 6 or 3. So it's going to be different for everyone. And that means we're all going to come to this project in a different way with a different perspective. But somehow we have to pull that together. And we have to remember who we are today and where we're heading as an institution, which is very different from where it was even 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. I want to talk just for a moment about university advancement and my work with Frances Washburn. Frances and Jenna Mills, an alumni in the alumni area, and I have met, and especially Frances and I have worked on coming up with ideas for fundraising for the campaign that's coming up, and also, how the university priorities would match up with the college's priorities. So we've been working on that. Frances has also received a number of important gifts. One you've heard me talk about in the past, and that is a bequest Frances has been working on, and I met the donors. They're Towson University alums who met on a study abroad trip 40 years ago. And they were students at the time. They were very young, fell in love, and got married and have stayed together this whole time. And now they're thinking about their legacy. So they're not very old. They're pretty young still, if you think about it, early 60s, let's say. And they gave us a lovely $170,000 bequest. So they've committed this in their estate. Now, as you know, bequests only bring the money to us when the donors are no longer living, right? They've died. And so it's a really important thing, but there might be more we can do with this couple because we'd like them to be able to see the benefit of their generosity today. So there hopefully is more to come from that, but while they're still with us, let's put it that way. And then Frances has also received a number of gifts for different programs. Some of you may be aware of them. They're not as large, but they're to prioritize certain student-centered activities. So I won't list all of those, but they're just as important. And we have a few more that we're working on. In fact, Frances will be, setting me up with more donor visits so we can develop both affinity to the university, but also an interest in actually donating to the university. I recently met, that means last week, I met with the university's Alumni Board. It's a rather young group. They're not all so young, meaning that when I say young, a lot of the members of the board graduated as recently as 10 years or 11 years ago. That's for an alumni board, those are recent grads. And they seemed very interested. They seemed like a group that would be very, excited about working with the university. Many of them were from CLA. So Frances and I will also be working on developing an alumni board for our college to, again, help first with fundraising, but also to help establish new connections and networks for our students who need those. So they go out to the work world and as Towson alumni, and we all know how important it is to meet someone or to get to know someone who's from the same alma mater. So that's really important. And we'll continue that work. And now I want to say a few words about the Dean's Office tips or the dots. They've shifted in focus after the holidays, and that in part reflects the shift in, I would say, outlook about the future, as the pandemic is not under control, but the numbers are certainly trending in a better way. And so they're a little bit more hopeful if you look at it from that perspective. Thank you for sending me podcasts. I've gotten so many podcast recommendations come in, and of course I can't screen them all. So there's a little disclaimer now, because I do try to screen as much as I can, but I have, podcasts are podcasts, and there's as far as I know, almost no censorship. So you do want to be careful about listening to them for the first time with members of your family or friend group who may be with you and may not be willing to listen to that or shouldn't be hearing some of the things on podcasts. I've also added lists for blogs and websites of interest, and I need suggestions there. That I really could use some help with. So please send those to me. I've also added a folder on democracy. I would like to close with a list of good news that is growing daily. So if I leave anyone out this time, I will certainly include them next time. And today I'm focusing on students. So I want to start with the Truman Fellowship. So 4 of our Towson students were nominated for the fellowship. And this is a national fellowship in honor of President Harry Truman. And it is for students who are graduating and are interested in careers in public service leadership, which I think is really, important when you think about democracy. And then, of course, the future of any country. Any country needs a well-educated core public servants, and then leaders, of course, from that core. One of the 4 was selected as a finalist. She'll be interviewed, I believe, next month, and then decisions will be made. This is a very, distinguished group of finalists, I'm sorry. And her name is Nina Bundy. She's a political science major. I want to name, though, the other 3 students because the nomination itself is an honor. Briseida Barrientos Ariza, and I'm sure I'm not going to pronounce everyone's name correctly, but I'm trying. She is going to be graduating this semester in English literature. Then there's Sita Henderson Williams. She'll be graduating in psychology. Then there's Garrett Zahner, and he is political science and economics major. So we share him, but I still would like to claim him as our own. Then we have Fulbright semifinalists. So a decision again will come later in the semester, and he's senior Garrett Leatherman. He's a semifinalist for the English Teaching Assistant Program to Italy, and he expects to graduate this semester with a foreign language degree in Spanish and a double minor in Italian and philosophy. Then there are 2 CLA students who won awards that were given out by the Maryland Collegiate Honors Council at its annual conference over last weekend. One is Lowry, who won an award for Outstanding Honors College Student of the Year for a 4-year institution. And that comes with a small prize, a monetary prize. And it's given to 1 student at 1 Maryland 4-year institution each year. So that's really fantastic. And Lewis is a psychology major and a political science minor. He's president of the Undergraduate Research Club, a tutor in the Writing Center, and so forth. So he's really quite accomplished. And he will be one of 2 students representing Towson University at the Naval Academy Foreign Affairs Conference in April. Another honor that comes to us, and Bob Rook is leading that up for Towson, or for our college. He will also, Lewis will also be attending the University of Maryland Carey School of Law in the fall, and he wants to have a career in public service here in Maryland. So that's just wonderful. Taryn Painter is the other CLA student who won in this category, and he won as part of for his work as part of a class, Civic Engagement and International Affairs. And he's an honors college junior and a double major in history and political science with a minor in human rights. And then another award I want to point out or to mention is the Point Foundation Awards. And this is an award given to Corey Lassiter, a family studies and community development major. And this is one of the first scholarships for this foundation under their new Black, Indigenous, and People of Color program. So I know that there are other great things going on in the college, and just please send those to Paula Zine or to me so that I can acknowledge these awards. And it's not limited to faculty. It includes good news for, I'm sorry, not just for students, it includes good news for faculty and staff, okay, in the college. So please send those along. I really think it's important. And coming up for our website, starting the next academic year, I will have a sort of an honor roll or a running list of awards so that you don't have to just come to the town hall to find out, but we can recognize people in a more public way. I want to mention a couple of upcoming events. Really, if you want to look at the upcoming events page of the college, I would recommend that. Or if you're in the building, look at the monitors. And we have a lot of them. I don't want to single any of those out. But next month at the town hall, President Schatzel will be here. And so I'm hoping as many of you who can make it will come during the live session and present questions either in advance to Paula Zine or during the session in the chat box. So I think I've talked enough for now, and we'll open it up to questions. So I don't know if there's anything that's been submitted. We didn't have any in advance. Remember, you can submit your questions to Paula Zine anytime between town halls, and then I will respond to them. If it's not urgent, of course, I'll respond to them in the next town hall. So do we have any questions that have come in?
Not presently. So just standing by for those first questions to come into the Q&A section.
All right, don't be shy. We'll wait. We'll wait a little bit. I was at another session when it took a little while for people to start asking questions, and I thought it was over the session until the moderator said, I think we better wait. And it was a good idea because then the questions started rolling in. So there is a question that came in.
We do have one. And the question is, will vaccines be required for faculty, students, and staff upon returning?
Okay. So I don't know. That's all I can say. I believe the president and provost, I think they talked about that yesterday. I don't remember what they said, but I think it's a little bit too far out to know for sure. Testing is a different thing from vaccines. And I do want to say one thing about vaccines. Testing, is required, and the protocol has been established. It's published at the campus. And there's no way around that if you're going to be on campus, right? Unless you're going to somehow cheat the system, which, hopefully nobody will do. I think it's really important to remember that not everyone will be getting the vaccine. And I say that not because I know something about the distribution of vaccines, but because I've talked to some people who aren't really planning to get the vaccine, who are in our CLA community and on the campus. No matter how you might feel about that or how I might feel about that, if there are no regulations or restrictions, I think we have to look at this as something we have to basically accept. It's going to be an inclusion matter in my mind, among other things. Just like you don't know on your block or wherever you live, if you're in a building, who does and doesn't have the vaccine. And we have to be understanding. There are people who have religious reasons for not being vaccinated. Others may have health reasons. We shouldn't just assume that because someone says, I don't want the vaccine, they're doing that for some devious purpose. I think we need to be careful about that. Clearly, if the university requires it to return to campus, I will leave it up to HR and so forth to determine what has to be done with those people. But the provost has been adamant, and in my conversation with her yesterday, she repeated it. There will be humanity applied here. Clearly, if you cannot take the vaccine, and that if that should become a requirement to be on campus, we'll consider that, right? I mean, we're not going to be draconian about it. So I hope that helps answer the question.
All right. We also have a public service announcement from one of the audience members, if indicating that if you need to register for a vaccine, you should join the Facebook group, Maryland Vaccine Hunters. Great tips and info. Also, M&T Bank site opens new appointments at midnight most nights, and everyone is eligible now. Additionally, CVS and Six Flags are also options. Those open in the early mornings, sometime around 7 a.m. And another question, kind of sort of related, is how many students are in the building on a typical day?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I want to say thanks for that, those tips on the vaccine. I do think it's unfortunate that that there isn't a clearinghouse for the vaccine, and each state is left, to its own planning for how to distribute the vaccine. And within the state, sometimes each community. I would encourage people who are looking for the vaccine just to be persistent. As more people are vaccinated, fewer will need to be vaccinated. And that's obvious, but that might take some time, especially, like if you're in a category that is not at all on the list, but we all are on a 1B. We're in 1B category, right? So all of us are entitled to get it in that category of people. Even if you don't live in the state, you work in the state, you have to take it in the state of Maryland, but you don't have to live in the state of Maryland. So just keep persisting. And I think some of this has to do with luck. So I did finally get an appointment using the website or the Facebook group that was just mentioned. It was days of trying while I was eating breakfast pretty early in the morning, and one day something popped up. But I was really expecting to wait maybe a month before that happened. It's hard when you find out that other people have gotten an appointment for them, someone else in their family, and someone else. But I would say don't be discouraged, just keep trying, and eventually, hopefully you'll get one. I've heard from people who've gotten their vaccine that the process is smooth. Meaning once you arrive to the site, and people have taken it at different sites, so there might be some sites that don't work as well, but I've heard that generally speaking, the whole process is smooth, fairly quick. So I think that's good news too. Okay, Bob, I'm gonna have to ask you, could you repeat that question?
Certainly. How many students are in the building on a typical day?
Oh, on a typical, I really don't know. Teresa might be able to answer that. I don't know. I see, and this is just me visually, I see about 5 to 10 at any time that I walk around, but I don't know if Teresa knows.
So at most we have 50 students because we have a few classes, and those classes tend to make up those, the bulk of those students. But if you're basically walking through the building, at most I saw 4 students in a classroom studying together, and luckily, it was normal. The entire board was filled with writing, and I complimented them on that. Other than that, you get the 1s and 2s in the ALS spaces, and they're attending their classes, but right now, not that many.
And you will notice it if you come in the building, because there are almost no students prior to that. And I think as the weather gets warmer, this is what I'm hearing from other deans. They're thinking that more students might actually come because they know that they can eat outside, meet with, classmates or friends outside in a distanced way and so forth, more comfortably than being in the building. So we'll see if that changes. And we'll also see what happens, as we get closer to the fall semester.
All right, we've got one additional question. Have we passed the deadline for CLA summer undergrad research grants?
Okay, no, we haven't passed yet. So it is, if I remember offhand, I believe it's March 12th. It should be next week, Friday, if my memory serves me well. So please encourage your students to submit, and we'll be happy to review those. Yes, go ahead.
And that's all the questions that we have at the moment.
All right.
Chris, I do have a question. This is Teresa. Can I give a building update for something that I learned yesterday in a meeting that is going to affect CLA?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
So yesterday I was in a meeting with a project manager, and I was told that CLA will also go under construction. For those of you that have been here long enough, there was a 0.5 years ago where our roof leaked. And we've been fighting the good fight. If you attended Dr. Schatzel's town hall meeting, she mentioned the CLA roof. I've literally been fighting to get our roof repaired for 5 years, and now we are going to get it repaired. So beginning March 25th, the crane should pop up on CLA. They're going to put up some fencing and things like that to make sure that we're safe. But ultimately, the problem is that the zinc oxide decided to oxidize and start eating away at our roof. So what is going to happen is they're now going to repair all of those things. It was at first a little part of our roof. Now it is expanded to the entire roof. And so they're going to start with phase 1. So you'll see a crane there. And the crane is only due to be there for about a day, just to hoist the materials up on our roof, and then it will go away. It will come back when it's time for phase 2 and then phase 3. One of the mandates, which is why I wanted to say this now while we're live, is that the construction project managers have mandated that the workers, because it's so many and our elevators can only hold 3, that they utilize the stairs. And they only utilize our elevators when they need to, take up tools and things like that, which are hard to go to stairs, or in ADA cases. They're also not allowed to use our restrooms. So what you will see, I think they right now are looking at the LA Lawn, which is the big field, to put porta potties there for them. And so this construction, though it's going to be in multiple phases, is due to last until about August 5th. Right now, there should be no noise concerns, but if there are, just let me know so we can relocate any classes that's necessary. But just be on the lookout, and please, as always, don't be afraid to tell me when something is wrong so we can get it corrected as soon as possible, however that is supposed to happen, that is convenient to you. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Teresa.
All right, we've got one additional question that just popped in. Is the cafe open? If so, what are the hours, and does it serve food?
Well, the cafe was open briefly. It is not open right now. There isn't enough foot traffic for that. And maybe that's, it helps people's comfort, because there has been concern. I mean, I've heard concern from a lot of different people about how do we eat in the building. And I want to say something about that. And Teresa is working, I don't know if it's with a larger group across campus on that question of safe eating, right, in spaces and buildings. So the cafe is not open. There are 2 vending machines that have things that they're basically snacks, right, that you can purchase. But Teresa can tell you where those are. I will say this, and that is, for most people who for everyone who has an office, I recommend for the time being just to be considerate toward others and eat in your office, because, that will make you feel more comfortable, but even other people too, right? But everyone doesn't have an office. So if you have access to a space like, a conference room, or as it gets better outside, but it can be a part of the building because there aren't that many people right now. You can easily find a quiet space where you can eat, and no one should feel uncomfortable because you're alone, you're far away. If you want to eat with someone else, just make sure you observe the safe distance. That's really important. Taking the mask off to eat doesn't make us safe, although I think a lot of people who eaten in restaurants think that makes them safe. It's not really the case. I have not eaten in a restaurant, so I don't know. I'm just saying that. But we have to be considerate because everyone doesn't have a space. Students do eat, in the open areas, but when I've seen students, they've all been alone and they haven't been near anybody. But that's a real concern, I believe. So let's be patient.
Okay.
Next question is,
Oh, before you begin, Bob, let me answer Chris's question. The vending machines that are stocked are located in near LA 2118 and near LA 4310. As far as the team that's working on the protocols for eating on campus, that is a COVID team, which Steve Jones, Dr. Perot, Lowry Mullen, and I forgot the name from the head of risk management. He's on that team. And also, as far as places to eat that is close to LA, I just so happened to walk around yesterday and I went to the Glen. All of those cafe areas are open except for the sushi bar. And then I walked through the Hawkins Hall, and Au Bon Pain is actually open. So if you need a cup of coffee or something that's close to LA, instead of walking all the way to Starbucks, you can go to Au Bon Pain.
Thank you. Oh, that's good to know. Great. Thanks.
all right, well, the next question we have is, do we have any idea what the travel budget for faculty will be next year?
No, I mean, I'm hoping it will be similar to what it's been in the past, but that's part of the money that was taken away in the state givebacks earlier this academic year, which means I have to figure out like where might it come from, and so I haven't done that yet. You know, there are certain expenses that, and I haven't done this deep dive yet, but there are certain expenses that perhaps we don't always need every year. And so maybe we can just redirect some of those to help make up that deficit. I do want to wait till the budget is announced. About 2 weeks ago, the university system reached out to each provost and asked, they sent a list of items that could, you know, that underwent budget cuts this year and could impact a variety of things, student progress and so forth. So one of my responses had to do with travel money and conference money, because I think that without that being restored, and it impacts faculty's research projects. Faculty cannot attend conferences like they could in the past to present their work, or to meet with colleagues they may be collaborating with, or to, of course, develop networks, right? So I don't know if the provost included that in her response to the system, but I feel strongly about that. So I'm hoping, without making any firm promises, that I can support, you know, as many requests as was typical in the past. Of course, nobody really knows when travel will get back to normal and how many of these conferences will go back to normal. The associations I belong to, it's a very mixed bag. Everything from quite hopeful, so planning already for in-person conferences, to less hopeful, where they're going to have at least a hybrid component so everyone doesn't have to attend, which would be much cheaper, of course, to not at all hopeful, already planning for virtual conferences in the fall and early next year. So I think we have to see how that pans out. I do know that the different organizations I belong to, and some of them are disciplinary, are very aware that most university funding has been reduced and that travel has been, you know, sort of first in line for those reductions, which means that hybrid component becomes much more attractive, even when we return to face-to-face, because otherwise many faculty around the country will not be able to attend conferences like they could in the past. So I would expect a hybrid model to be fairly common once we get back to normal, and that will help cut costs, because everyone doesn't like to go to conferences. Everyone doesn't have time. So that could also impact the budget for conference travel. So I don't know, maybe I answered you and with too much information. Basically, I don't know yet. I'm hopeful. And if it's not restored, I'm going to do all that I can to make sure that I support conference travel the way people have expected it in the past.
Okay, again, I'll just remind everybody that if you've got a question, please put it into the Q&A box rather than raising your hand. That's a way that we can keep track of them. So just whatever question you have, just put it into the Q&A and I'll report it out.
I'll say one thing because it came my way since our last town hall, and you may have experienced it too, but if you do have some classes in your programs, or if you're teaching on campus face to face, even if only a few students show up, if any of those students should report themselves having been diagnosed with COVID, or a friend or a family member, someone they've spent time with recently, they are supposed to report it through the portal. There's a portal that on our website, and then contact tracing kicks in immediately, and many other things kick in. And so that contact tracing should mean that the students in your class are reached out to. I would assume the faculty members too. There's no need to cancel face-to-face for 2 weeks unless someone instructs you to do that. But if a student writes you, make sure they go to that portal. I don't have the address right now, but I can put that up in the dean's office tips. It's on the university's COVID page. It's not buried anywhere. So I think you just scroll down a little bit and you'll find it there, but you don't have to go through multiple links to get there.
At this point, we have no questions in the Q&A.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending today. And remember, next month is the president who will be speaking to us. The first 15 minutes is what she's asked for. And she just is going to be visiting all the colleges. She wants to meet the faculty in all the colleges on their home turf, so to speak. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to attend, to ask questions, and for her to see firsthand, what a vibrant community we are. So I hope you can make it, and please spread the word to your colleagues as well. Okay, thank you. Have a good rest of the day. Bye.